Alright, so today we are replacing the fan clutch on the 2003 Chevy Suburban, and I picked up a new one on Amazon. And what it was doing, the old one would never fully engage, and it always was dragging more than it should be. Should kind of free spin when it's anyway. I mean, you can look up the diagnostics if you want to, but when it was hot, it never would engage, and when it should engage kind of when it's cold, then quiet down. It doesn't really ever do that, and it would, when you're in, like at stoplights, the AC would, or sitting in a stoplight for a while, the AC would stop blowing cold. The fan wasn't pulling enough air across. And if you sat in traffic for a long time, it would start heating up a little bit. It never would get hot, but it would definitely, the temperature would start moving over. And so it was more of a airflow issue and not a cooling issue. Never had any problems out on the freeway, anything. As long as there was wind blowing across the radiator, from driving, it was fine. It was when you would come to a stop and the fan, when the fan was responsible for bringing the air across the radiator, is when there was a cooling problem. So it wasn't bad. I mean, anyway, fan clutch is bad. I mean, the problem wasn't severe, but there was definitely an issue with this fan clutch. So I ordered one on Amazon, and this is not going to be a complete how-to or anything. It's just kind of a quick overview. So what I did is I took this air intake tube off, then I undid the top radiator hose and just kind of set it out of the way, undid it from the radiator. Then you've got 2 bolts in the upper part of the fan shroud, and then you've got 2 of these little pop-up clips that go here and here. Of course, you'd have the top of the shroud. Take those out, and then you have to undo this little clamp here, and then there's a clamp on the upper fan shroud right there that holds the radiator hose, and then you got a little snap-in clip there that holds this hose. Once you get all that out of the way, you can pull the upper fan shroud out, and then that'll give you access to the fan, and it will go towards the passenger side. If you got your wrench up here, it's a standard thread, it's not reverse thread or anything, so it goes towards the passenger side of the vehicle. And I just used a big crescent wrench, adjustable wrench. I had I forget which one of those was close. It was either 1.5 inches or 1 5/8 inches. It's probably metric, but it just fit it loose, and this fit it, get it tight. And it wasn't super tight. The engine will try to turn when you're doing it. So I was trying to push on it, engine was turning. So what I ended up doing was getting a rubber mallet, and I hit the wrench a few times with the rubber mallet, and that broke it loose. So that's where we're at now. Now all I have to do is undo these 4 bolts and move the fan over to here and put the 4 bolts back in, and then I will just thread the clutch and everything back on, and I'll just use that rubber mallet again to tighten it, because that will get it tighter than I can. If I'm just pulling on it, it's gonna rotate the engine. So I'll get it tight till the engine starts rotating, and then I'll hit it a few times with that rubber mallet, and the abrupt hits will tighten it without get it tighter than I can with just doing it. If you really wanted to get tight, you could probably stop the engine somehow, like with I do have a big chain, whatchamacallit, I could put around the crank pulley. If I was going to do that, I'd probably take the belts off, wrap an old belt around the crank pulley, and then wrap that around it. I could wrap that around the crank pulley and stop it, but we can get it tight enough without without that. So let me stop babbling on and get this project done. Oh, and you will need to drain some of the coolant because you will lose it when you undo the top radiator hose. Alright, so got these bolts tight, and it's also a good time to check your fan. Make sure there's no cracks in the blades or anything. Everything looks good on this one, so we're going to put it back on there. There's the old one, there's the new one. Looked up the GM part numbers for it and ordered this one. A lot of times you'll have to look up some specifics about your vehicle, like the rear axle ratio, things like that. But this is the right one. Mine has a towing package with 373 gears. It's got AC. It's automatic transmission. So that's kind of the main things you need to know that affect the fan clutch, and that determines like at what RPMs it locks and unlocks. So let's get this threaded back on there. See if I can do this. Ooh, can I do this one-handed? Yeah, I'll switch hands. Ooh, I don't know if I can do this. Okay. Kind of hard one-handed, but got it. So now I'll take my wrench and I'll put it on here, and see if you just try to do that, it turns the engine. So if I put it on here and give it some hits with that rubber mallet, it will get it tight. So let me get this thing tight. So I've got it tight. Now the fan rotates, let's see, the fan rotates this way, so that puts a drag on the fan that way, which in turn tries to tighten the nut. I mean, you still want to get it tight, but you know, it's not spinning trying to unscrew itself. That's basically what I'm saying. But you do need to make sure you get it tight. So now that that's tight, I can start putting the shroud back on and radiator hose and all that. Alright, I don't know if you can see, it's kind of got a glare on it, but I figured I'd get my little inspection camera, check out the radiator. There's the cores in the radiator. You can see they are clear. This is a 1-core radiator. No corrosion or anything. Looks clear to me. So, got my little inspection camera with a mirror. It's got a little mirror attached to it. And so here we've got a little part number on the radiator. It's stamped with the part number. That is the correct part number for this Suburban. Looked it up. And we've got a date stamp of 5/19 of 03, which you would think for an 03, that's a late, that seems late, but this is a late 03 Suburban. So here we go. It was manufactured in June of 03. Come on, focus. So this is a late manufactured Suburban. It's a late 03. So normally most of the 03s you see are, you know, manufactured late in 2002. But This one was manufactured fairly soon, probably before they started making the 04s. So anyway, original radiator, and it is not clogged, so we seem to be good there. And we've got our new fan on. Now I just got to put the upper shroud on and connect the hose, radiator hose back up, fill it full of coolant, and we'll be good to go. Alright, upper shroud is on. Got the 2 bolts tight. Those 2 snap in, push in connector things, whatever you want to call them, are in. Got the top radiator hose on. It is in its little holder here. This hose here, it goes to the throttle body, is in its little holder here and there. Now we just need to slip this on. The screwdriver fell, but it fell all the way to the ground. And that's slipped on. We'll have to tighten that with a screwdriver. And then we need to get this in its little holder. It's in. And we'll tighten this up, put coolant in it, and we're done.